How we doing? Woo. Oh my gosh, I was almost late. I was almost late because I was just trying to do too much. I was just trying to be too good, work too hard. You know what I'm saying? Oh my god, why is my mic so quiet? I need to get a new audio mixer is what I am learning. How we doing? Mustang Colvin. How's it going? Woo. Hello, hello, hello. This book club. I'm not certain about this book club. It is either, because I feel like it's either going to be the shortest book club or the longest. Because simultaneously, huge things happened, big stuff, but a lot of it was like wrapping up questions. There are obviously still like huge questions left over, like what the fuck? How did the Parshendi Shardbear know Dalinar? But I think a lot more questions kind of got answered, including several questions that I did not even realize I had. So that was. I realized that like when they were like, oh, the fucking the Parsh people are the Void Bringers, I was like, Excuse me? that was not even potentially on my mind as a question. So yeah, fucking crazy ending to the book, which I think that like Brando Sando just kind of has it, when it comes to his books and his series of leaving just enough open to where it doesn't feel like it feels like it needs a sequel, right? Like it feels like there's so much left for the series, but he answers so many of our questions like right at the end, which was so fucking cool. Hashtag lurk, I'll give you my Prime sub as soon as it's available again. Thank you so much, Fairwin. Thank you. But yeah, so this book club is, like I said, it's either going to be the shortest or the longest, because I don't know exactly how much I'll even want to talk about all of it. Okay, and I'm thinking, I need to pull up the Twitch. I think I know what was wrong with Twitch. I think, the bit rate was too high, and now Twitch is telling me that the bitrate is okay. It's not yelling at me anymore. And YouTube is also telling me that the bitrate is okay, which it is very rare for me to get them to agree. So, I think I might have honed in on the right bitrate. So we will see. I'm hoping. Book club, I'm clueless, but y'all have a great time. I hope you in the background. Thank you very much, Colvin. Thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be sick. And I mean, you can always one of the reasons that I always, I want to archive almost every stream of mine is so that people can go back and watch. If you ever feel the desire to go back and watch or go back and read Way of Kings, you'll have book club in ad infinitum. Kind of the reason I had to start reading the next book right away. Look, I get it. I totally get it. I will be reading very, very quickly. Longest Who Needs Short videos. You're so right. You're so true. I just don't know. I mean, we'll jump into it. We'll jump into my notes and we'll just see how much I even have to talk about. Because most of it is just like, whoa, that question was answered. Whoa, that question was answered. I have a giant theory. I have a big theory on the Almighty and like the nature of the Almighty. And I have a lot of big swings for the rest of the series. However, a lot of them are based on knowledge that I have from reading Mistborn. So, I'm going to save a lot of that stuff to the very end, which is, convenient because most of it was in the last chapter. So, I'll save that. I'll do like a no Mistborn spoilers, thing. And then we'll transition at the end to full on Mistborn spoilers. I will switch to Twitch and let you know. Sounds good, Mustang. This is my first Sanderson book, so I have no hints. Yeah, and so I want to talk about it within itself first, and then, kind of with my knowledge of Mistborn. And even when we're talking about Mistborn, I'll try to keep it as vague as possible. But the swings that I am taking, like the predictions that I have, are very rooted in what I know of the wider Cosmere, which is kind of impossible to talk about without getting into Mistborn spoilers. But with that, the fucking title of this stream, I think the maybe line that hit me the hardest in a fucking slurry of hard-hitting lines within these last two parts was when Kaladin said in chapter 53, I've only known one man of honor, and he was a surgeon. Oh, right there. Especially because in the end of the last part, like, we know that, like, when he went off to war, like, he never goes back. His parents are still out there. It's not like they fucking died. Like the classic Disney princess shit. He's too ashamed to face them because of his failures. Which, like, Kaladin grappling with his failure, or at least what he sees as his failures, is a large theme throughout this part, or parts. And god damn, that one man of honor. And it is so, that line and the way, because he's talking about Dalinar. People are saying, like, oh, Dalinar's a man of honor, whatever, and Kaladin's basically like, nah, fuck him. He could fucking Dalinar could never, am I right? And so that, I don't know, that line just, like, stuck with me throughout the entire part of, like, I've only known, like, one man of honor. It's that perceived failure. Yeah. And I think that there's a very interesting generalized conversation about, like, levels of responsibility. I actually just had a conversation with my friend about this, where, we were talking about, like, how what is the balance between, the level of responsibility that a community has to its members, and, like, how do you weigh that? Like how do you feel? Or how are you supposed to feel? And, like, what do you need to look in on yourself when there is a failure, right, of it to an individual? Like, how much weight does the community bear in that failure? And individuals bear within that community. I think it's a very open question that the book doesn't really make a huge statement on. It is all played internally within Kaladin, which I think was very interesting. Especially, like, they've tackled a lot of, like, maybe, like, moral leanings and philosophical stances throughout the book. So I think that that's something interesting that they are just kind of chilling on, just kind of not going too deep into. His parents got a letter from him, and he re-enlists, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So it's like after he fails Tian, after Tian dies, Tian? It's Tian, right? Am I going absolutely insane? It's Tian, his brother. After his brother dies, he sends them a letter. He tells them about what happened, and he just is like, I'm not coming home. And then he never goes back. Tian, okay, yeah. So yeah, I just thought, I don't know, it was very interesting, very, very, I don't know, that one really stuck with me. Also, so in 54, before they confirmed it, I was like, fucking Withoid. I actually said I think Wit is the guy that was being searched for at the Pure Lake. So a little bit more generic, but I was, I was like, he's Hoid. And I was right. And I was correct, and I'm based. Also, okay, so this is like a straight up spoiler, but it's not even a spoiler. It is a reference to the Mistborn Cosmere. that is not really a spoiler in any way. It is just like, if you know, you know sort of thing. I am almost so confident in my theory that Wit, Hoid, whatever, is Drifter from Secret History. So if you've read Secret History, that is my theory. Because Wit mentions something in chapter 54, Adel Nauseam, which is not referenced the entire rest of the part, and him referencing that makes me incredibly confident that he is Drifter. Again, not even really a spoiler, just if you know, you know. Yeah, and also he's called Void. He talks about how the Cosmere awaits. He's talking about Adel Nauseam's killing in detail. Yeah, it's just I think he's Drifter. Let's see. So in 54, the investigation, so Sadeas's investigation, I think so much of what was really interesting and novel in this book, which we'll get into it even more, is the murder plot against Elhokar. Like, it is presented as a murder mystery, and I've said this before, where the murder mystery just hasn't happened yet, which makes it so interesting, and it is used as a device to forward so many of the other plots. So, like, in this case, it is like the investigation. I don't remember exactly. I didn't write down for some reason what exactly happened in 54 that made me think all this. So I'm gonna bring up the chapter recaps. But I said that little bit of discovery within the investigation goes towards, it's not really significant in the investigation as a whole, but it was more proof to Dalinar that the visions were correct. So let's see. Adel Nauseam, oh yeah. So Sadeas. Oh, this is when Sadeas concludes that someone is trying to frame Dalinar. It is more kind of to us, it is more indicative that the visions are real, that he can trust Sadeas, which we'll get to. But within that chapter and within the moral kind of conflict of Dalinar, this was a indication of, oh, I can trust Sadeas, therefore I can trust the visions, which, like I said, that is played with later. But I thought it was really cool because it doesn't actually progress the investigations at all. It just progresses the characters' inner conflict and inner like arc, which was really neat. Also, at this point, I was like, Sadeas is based when he's kind of letting Dalinar have it for the self-righteousness. The logic is there, but based on falsehoods. Yeah, which I think was really well done on the author's part, on Brandon's part. Like, all of the logic of the investigation and the visions, it's all there. It all makes sense. And I think that he plays on that so well. Like, I think that especially within the almost challenge of getting us into the mindset of these characters, of these people who are, you know, constantly at war. I can switch the camera now. Constantly at war, constantly like backstabbing each other. I think that the investigation is handled so well as a backdrop to put us in that mindset. Like, this like constant back and forth of, can I trust Sadeas, can I not, was the absolute perfect way to put us in Dalinar's mindset of like, can't trust anything. Like, am what I seeing, is that reality? I really liked it. And it all, I'll talk way more about the Sadeas thing later, but I thought that was really fucking good. And that whole conversation of Sadeas like pressing Dalinar on like his self-righteousness, when I talk about like during Critical Role, when I talk about how it's okay for characters to be flawed, it is okay for like this, and that. This is what I mean, where like it's okay for characters to have flawed. It's okay if Dalinar is a bit like self-righteous and kind of a prick about it, as long as other people like press them on it. It is like cool and good for characters to have flaws, as long as other people don't ignore them. Which I thought was a good part of this. I also really liked Dalinar's negotiations. I liked Dalinar's negotiations at several points during these parts. But even here, when he's convincing Sadeas to go on the plateau runs together, we obviously know that Sadeas kind of has ulterior motives at this point, or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he developed them later. But I liked Dalinar's negotiations because a lot of times it feels like heroes are just kind of willing to give up anything. And I think that the deal that Dalinar makes later runs that risk, but I think that he justified it well, where it feels like the heroes are just willing to give up fucking whatever to make the plan work. And it can run the risk of like feeling a bit too Doyleist, right? It feels like the main characters are willing to give up anything to make the plot progress. And I don't think that's what Dalinar felt like in this chapter. I think Dalinar really made a lot of good deals with a lot of like logical sense to them. Where like everything feels fair. It's just playing on people's separate priorities. Like telling Sadeas, hey, I'll fucking, if we win it, I'll take down the Shard Bearer and I'll give you the blade. Like, I think that one motivation of Sadeas, of wanting a Shard Blade, is one of the primary linchpins in why this entire book works, but especially these last two parts. Like, Sadeas' single motivation of if Sadeas has a Shard Blade already, basically nothing in this part makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of the other parts could have, been fine with that. Hi. Hello. I know you're upset. A lot of the other parts could have worked, but that, like, simple fact, that simple motivation for this character was it for this side character. It's not like Sadeas is a main character. And it's like a very simple and straightforward motivation that totally ties the entire plot together at this back end. And that's why I think that, like, whenever I say, like, you don't have to have deep characters, that's sort of what I mean. And like when I say like I have a whole thing on like that I want to do. I still haven't done it yet. About like symbolism and how like symbolism doesn't have to be deep. Like sometimes your motivations and your plots and your characters can be kind of surface level as long as they are like unique and you use them well. So like Sadeas' desire for a Shard Blade, very straightforward, very obvious why he wants it. And it is used to such great effect the entire last two parts, the entirety of part 4 and 5. And yet Dalinar wants to trust someone so badly. He really does. He really does. And the only people he can trust are Adolin and Renarin. But Renarin is seen as a weakling, and Adolin doesn't trust him for most of it. And I think that, but he wants to. And that is like, they talk about like how, like Dalinar in previous parts straight up calls out how similar him and Adolin are. And obviously he trusts Adolin enough to fucking abdicate. And Adolin doesn't trust him. And it's only once Adolin comes around to trusting him that things really start to lock into place for Dalinar. Like, once him and Adolin trust each other fully, he's always trusted Adolin fully. But once him and Adolin like really get on the same page is when kind of most of Dalinar's like debates fall into place. I don't know if, that's like super purposeful or not. But it was really, and then there's the very like clear symbolism of Adolin giving him his right-handed gauntlet, which I'll get into later. But like, I think that's like very clear symbolism of like, they're on the same wavelength now. And once Dalinar has that, he becomes so much more solid, in his convictions. While Dalinar wants his son to have shards, he knows he needs High Prince aid to bring the Alethi together. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things where it's, again, it feels Watsonian. It feels like there is like very distinct character motivation for what is happening in those negotiations. It does not just feel like, oh, as the author, I want them to go on joint plateau assaults, so I'm going to have them make this deal to go on joint plateau assaults. It feels like there has been significant setup to make us understand and believe their motivations, and then he just uses those motivations to get them where they need to be. Like, it was so... None of it came out of nowhere. Which is, I think, one of the biggest things when you're doing a harder magic system, like when you're doing something where or when you're doing mystery, like making it feel like things don't come out of nowhere is a huge priority when you're telling like this kind of story, I feel like. And I think Sando did it very well. Adolin kind of grew up a bit. He did. And I think that he independently came to the conclusion that even Dalinar didn't. Like, in A Man of Extremes, in that chapter, I don't remember what the chapter number is, Dalinar talks about how he follows the codes basically to restrict himself because he doesn't like who he becomes. He's not even really following the codes because of the results that they get, But I think that Adolin sort of comes at it from the opposite side of, he starts looking around and he's like, man, all these people in Sadeas's camp and like outside of the codes kind of fucking suck. Like, they're kind of chumps. And and I think that could have been seen as coming out of nowhere if it hadn't been like so well established that the reason that Adolin is like so hard on Dalinar up to this point is because he loves the Blackthorn. Like, he loves who his dad is and who he can be. Like, he really, really loves and respects his dad. And he like wants Dalinar to be this fucking glorious man who like everyone fucking respects and who like everyone speaks highly of. And he starts to look around towards the end when he kind of comes around on the codes and says like, well, do I fucking respect these chumps? Am I like down with this? And he very quickly comes around because I think his mindset has been in the right place for a while. It kind of clicks into place for him once they start talking about like, oh man, like once he starts acknowledging that maybe his dad isn't insane, when they start like trying to prove the visions, it kind of clicks into place for him. Like, wait, if my dad isn't insane, then he has a real reason for wanting the codes. Why would he want the codes? And he kind of looks around and he's like, oh, this is why he would want the codes. This shit sucks without them. And it's like a very like quick click into place, but it didn't feel out of place for me because it didn't feel like his mindset really changed. It was just like a quick like shifting of lens and suddenly it all made sense to him. So it felt right to me. Yeah. Adolin, Brando has said that Adolin didn't exist in early drafts. He was added as another lens for understanding Dalinar originally, and I think his character serves that purpose really well. I totally agree. Because I think that Dalinar doesn't even really understand like the effect that he has, like as a whole on the camps. And I think that Adolin is a fantastic foil to, number one, what the camps think of him, because the only other place that Dalinar gets the information of like what do people think of me is from Elhokar. Oh my god, the most untrustworthy narrator that has ever been conceived. And like Navani, who for most of the book he doesn't trust, and Sadeas, which he wants to trust, but we very quickly learn he cannot. So he has all of these sources of information that he can't trust. He has the visions that he can't trust. Like Mustang said, he wants to trust someone so bad, and the only person that he does trust is Adolin. And I think that having Adolin be this kind of suggestible youth that is kind of like into like flights of fancy and is really into like the dueling glory hound nature of the Alethi serve as like that trustworthy source for how Dalinar appears to the public was an amazing choice, an amazing lens for Dalinar to see himself and for us to see the effect of the codes outside of Dalinar's lens. Because everyone else is like, oh man, the codes fucking suck. Tell your dad to stop that shit. And Sadeas points out, I think pretty astutely, that Dalinar like judges people very harshly without actually looking at the results of anything. Like he judges people on like not wearing their uniforms, not having all this like stuff, but he all relates it back to the codes. He's like, oh no, this just is what we should do. He doesn't actually look at the effects that the code has, other than like, yeah, of course my people are better because we follow the codes. But he doesn't look at like the distinct and discrete results of the codes that make everything better. So yeah, I think Adolin's fucking sick as a character. It's when Adolin grows up a bit that House Kholin is safe, at least for now. Yeah. 100%, I think, yeah. So, yeah. Wait, what else do I have? Oh, whoa. I think that in 55, we see a comparison between Dalinar and Amaram. Obviously, very purposeful, makes a lot of sense from Kaladin's point of view, and I like the progression of Kaladin trusting Dalinar. Like, I really like, again, like, it can't feel like something comes out of nowhere. Like, I think it was pretty, I don't want to say it was obvious, because it could have been subverted, but I talked about, I think in, like, part 1 or part 2. No, because Dalinar and Adolin were in part 1. In part 2, I was saying, like, oh, okay. Like, like Kaladin's eventually going to wind up with Dalinar. Like, I saw the writing on the wall from that far back, but I think that Brandon put in the legwork to get them there, because it can't, just like Kaladin can't win over the Bridgemen too easily, Dalinar can't win over Kaladin too easily. Otherwise, it feels like shit. But there was like very distinct things that got Kaladin there. Like Dalinar saving them. Like that is like the easiest thing that feels so simple and so small, but gives Kaladin that little seed of doubt. Because like Kaladin's thinking to himself, well, fucking Amaram wouldn't do that. Right? Like, no matter how honorable or no matter how much veneer is put up, Amaram wouldn't have done that for the Bridgemen. Even if he had the blade and the plate, he wouldn't have fucking saluted to the Bridgemen at the end. He just wouldn't have. I think, at least in Kaladin's POV. And so I think that was really nice, like a little planted seed of doubt. And then that seed of doubt can be nurtured over the coming chapters. And it can be, contested a little bit of like, oh no, like Dalinar's using Bridgman now, but like the way that he treats them is kind of different. And you can have all of these little seeds that lead up to the big moment in the end where Kaladin saves Dalinar. And even before this, even before all of these seeds have been planted, the actual first seed isn't even Dalinar. It is the lens for how we view Dalinar. It is Adolin saving the person in Sadeas' camp. Like that is just the effect of Dalinar. That's the effect of the codes. Is, again, like this little brain worm inside of Kaladin's mind. Adolin saving the woman. Yeah, exactly. It's this little brain worm that's like, well, they can't be too good. But, like, he didn't need to do that. Like, Amaram was always noble on his face. He was always polite. But then he immediately almost instantly puts the messenger boys in the army. Like, he makes these promises, but then he doesn't follow through on them. Whereas Adolin and Dalinar just do shit. And there's no kind of anything after it. They just do what they do. So I liked the slow, like hyper slow buildup of Kaladin trusting Dalinar that then like fucking like escalates like that at the end. But again, there's just been just enough buildup, I think, to get them there. How's it going? What up, cheeky monkey? It's good. We're talking about Way of Kings. Kaladin seeing how the son acts, the dad can't be that bad. Well, especially like the young Light Eyes, right? Like, again, if we compare this to not even Amaram, but if we compare it to oh god, who's the Light Eyes that takes over Hearthstone after the previous Bright Lord dies? Whoever he is, the Bright Lord that takes over, his son, huge fucking prick. Right? like arguably like more of a callous prick than his dad, because his dad's a bit more controlled. Amaram's cousins, Lamaril, yes, or Rishon, Bright Lord Rishon, and his son, huge fucking prick to Kaladin in the back rooms. Right. And I think that in Kaladin's subconscious is like a very direct comparison of like Rishon doesn't put on a front like Amaram, but there's like a very direct correlation between like the actions and the attitudes of the father to the son. And for Kaladin to see the opposite of that, be like, well, fucking Adolin wasn't that bad. Like, he was a little callous, and he did, like, sort of order Kaladin around, but he still helped. He wasn't being a prick. And I think that is, like, a foundation for then hearing Dalinar's this man of honor. And then he hears it, and he doesn't believe it, but then he sees evidence. And he's like, and that brainworm grows, right? It's just, there were so many small things that when it came up to this, and it wasn't just motivated by all of those things. It was motivated by Syl. And like by this, Syl's a bind spren, but also bind spren are like otter spren, it seems like. That was a little confusing. She was like, I'm a bond spren of blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa. But it comes along with that, where Kaladin has not become convinced of Dalinar's goodness, of the Kholin goodness in general. He has just become convinced enough to let his other motivations take over, which I think is actually a missing part in a lot of things where it feels like things happen too fast, where it feels like things weren't foreshadowed enough. Right? Because like this escalation was small, huge. But I think that huge tipping point can feel really bad sometimes, right? Like I talked about in Critical Role, like the weird escalation steps and how like it felt kind of odd within Matt's like narrative of the campaign. But I think it feels okay in this one because the escalation for Kaladin wasn't I hate Light Eyes, I hate Light Eyes, I hate Light Eyes. I love Light Eyes. I'll risk my life for them. It was I hate Light Eyes. I will not risk myself or my people to even potentially affect the life of a Light Eyes, even if it involves saving other Dark Eyes, right? Like, he was at that point where he's like, I would never go back to save Light Eyes. I would never even risk them getting credit for the things that I do, right? Like, that was kind of the place that he was at. And so we didn't have to fully 180 his opinion. We just had to get him, and I say we, I mean Brandon, just had to get him to the point where he doesn't actively want to cause Light Eyes harm. And once we get just over that small precipice is when his other motivations of honor, of saving the army, of like doing all of these other things can override that and come into effect. So I thought it was dope. Also, something that I like, they talked a little bit about like the splinter religions around like chapter 55. Jezrien is the Stormfather, which is not. I thought that Stormfather was just equivalent to Almighty, but apparently not. Also, Toladol shows up at the end. Crazy. We'll get to that. But yeah, so that was just like a little bitty for me. Also, it comes up very obviously, and this is something that they very obviously exploit later. But the Parshendi act, very reverent of their dead. I have a theory as to why, because right now it has been displayed as just like a cultural taboo about the Parsh people and their dead, of like, they get upset, whatever. I think that the source of the cultural taboo, because they talk about very specifically that they don't find as many Parshendi bodies. And they say that they say like, oh, they're more dense, so they don't get like washed as easily. I don't know that I believe that shit. My theory, because they talk about how the Parshmen carry their dead out, wrap them in, I think, linen, and take them out to like stone slabs in the wilderness. And I was like, do they now? Aha. And on the shattered plains, they are left on stone. And especially with what we learn later, that the Parsh people are the Voidbringers. And the Voidbringers, as we saw in the visions, have allies? Pets? Potentially? That appear to be made of stone. Like, that is how Dalinar describes like monsters that look as if they are cut from stone. So I'm wondering, right? And like, there's a connection that we've already drawn in this stream between the Great Shells with their moldy blood and the Parsh people with their moldy blood. And the Great Shells gestate gem hearts within them. And we've already said, I think already, that the whole chrysalis bullshit, and like when they, are cutting out the gem hearts, whatever, I think that is part of the Great Shell life cycle. So we see what appears to be, I would say, a level of like, not necessarily like reincarnation, but it seems to be that like the chrysalis and like dying in this chrysalis, I think is part of the Great Shell reproductive life cycle. I think a similar thing about the Parsh people. I think that it's not that their bodies are more dense or anything like that. I think that the reason that they are so reverent about their dead and they don't touch their dead and they carry it out to the stone is, I think, that the Parshmen the Parsh people, just to because they haven't talked about the Parsh people reproducing at all, and they never talk about the Parshmen having babies, or there even being women Parshmen. Parshendi. Yeah. I'm saying I'm using Parsh people for Parshendi and Parshmen combined, because they talk about it constantly as like they're a different species. I don't think they're a different species. I think maybe they are different races of the same species, or it's like divergent evolution. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the reason that the Parshmen carry their people out to the stone, the Parshendi don't want their dead touched, is that they like reincarnate. That is and that's also maybe why they weave gems into their beards, is I think that there needs to be like a certain level of like stormlight around for them to reincarnate and to basically like, that is like part of their like life cycle, their like reproductive life cycle. Because they never talk about like Parshmen babies, right? Like that's never something that is addressed, and maybe it's just something that's not addressed. But I don't know. And so I think maybe there's like a certain chance that they reincarnate, and that maybe like if you move their body, or if the body's too damaged, that they don't. And maybe that's why they avoid like attacking wounded. I don't know about the wounded thing, but that's one of my big swings. Is that they like reincarnate. So like dead Parsh people are essentially like gestating babies. And that's why they're so like against you touching their dead. That's my theory. Yeah. And then in 56, I became even more certain about this, is like, that's why they're finding less dead bodies, is because there's like a certain chance that they like respawn, essentially. Also, I thought that Wit was trying to kill the king. I no longer think that. At 57, I thought Wit was trying to kill the king. I don't think that's the case anymore, because we eventually know that Elhokar basically planned his own assassination. But we'll get to that a little bit more later. But yeah, he's Hoid from the Interlude. Oh man, and I'll save this for the Mistborn spoilers later, because I have more theories about Hoid. But his story 57 is where Hoid Wit tells Kaladin the story, and very very direct, like, oh, God is dead, we have to like take responsibility for our own actions, which, you know, very historical thing of people blaming religion for doing terrible things, or like, ascribing responsibility to an overlord for whatever they do. And this is a very like poignant part of Kaladin's whole deal. And I think it could have run the risk of feeling slightly contrived, but Wit is such a... I think he is literally a mythological figure. But also figuratively, like within the context of the story, he almost fills this like Deadpool-esque role of like the witty guy who sort of like gives like a wink and a nudge to the audience, you know? And because he fills that role, him like basically soul reading Kaladin doesn't feel as weird as it could otherwise, you know? Because, like, that is almost his place within the story, is to soul read people. Like, it is an almost, like, meta power that has been ascribed to him at this point as the Wit. So it was a weird chapter, but it didn't take me out of it. And again, I think from a meta perspective, I think Wit is literally a mythological figure, and I will get into that in the Mistborn spoilers area. but I for non-Mistborn spoilers, I think that I think that Wit is not human. I will say that. I do not think he is just a normal dude that's just chilling. And I think that the epilogue serves that even more. Of like he shows up in the just random place that Tollinol, the fucking herald, happens to show up. Yeah. Wit is not just a normal dude. So I don't think that this chapter feels crazy. But the story was very interesting. Also, Sigzil. He's Sigzil's mentor. Ooh, Sigzil. I like Sigzil. Also, something that I am still confused about. Even with everything else that we learn, there's one piece of information that's gnawing at me a little bit. This entire part has kind of implied to us that a bond between a spren and a person is what allows people to do lashings. And I am at this point basically saying that anyone that can do lashings is a surge binder. That is my understanding of things. Is that the term surge binder, which we hear we've heard before and we hear in the visions, surge binder. That the surge binders can do their lashings because of a relationship between them and spren. And this is further confirmed when we learn that when we get confirmation that the rune heads are spren, which I think was a theory I'd already put out there. So and we see very clearly later with Jasnah and Shallan that the soul casting, which seems like a corollary to surge binding, especially because in the vision with Nohadon, we get he's like, oh, the surge binders, oh, the soul casters, which I'll get into later. I felt proud of myself for that one. I caught on that people could soul cast without a device, without a fabrial. I caught on to that. I did not, I will say, didn't catch on at all that Jasnah was a soul caster and that she wasn't using one. I did not catch that, but I did catch that there was the existence of non-fabrial person soul casters. I did not catch that Jasnah was one. Even though it was very they break down how you could have figured it out. I did not. I didn't catch that shit at all. But this whole surge binder soulcaster stuff, right? It seems like it is very distinctly a relationship between spren and person. Shallan has to offer a truth. She can talk to the rune heads. And Jasnah straight up says, oh, those rune heads, that shit's a spren. And she offers a truth to the spren, and that's how she goes to Shadesmar. Okay, so let's establish all of that. And it seems as if Kaladin's lashings get better as he listens to Syl, as he listens to the spren. Okay, so the thing that is bugging me about all of this is that there's a very particular piece of information that we have learned at this point, which is that Shinovar doesn't have spren. So how can Szeth do lashings? Is it because so my thoughts. We learn that Shinovar doesn't have spren from outsiders. And we've also learned from another interlude that there are certain spren that are unique to geographic locations, like the big ass fucking whale spren thing. And we've learned that spren can choose whether or not to reveal themselves. Like Syl has very active autonomy over whether or not she reveals herself to certain people. My only way that I can justify this in my brain is that Shinovar does have Spren. They just don't reveal themselves to anyone that aren't Shin. But I need to go back and listen to the original interlude because I'm fairly certain that Szeth actively narrates that he's confused by Spren and that he doesn't fucking get it. In fact, I'm wondering if I go back into the chapter summaries into Way of Kings fucking To Kill. Right? Yeah, POV Szeth. I wonder if it'll say on the chapter summary, right? Szeth's son Villano, truthless of Shinovar, is sent by the Parshendi to kill King Gavilar. Alethkar and Parshendi, he doesn't know why he's being sent to kill. He has instructed to kill the king. He uses his abilities as well as his honor blade, not his shard blade. That's weird. Okay, these chapter summaries might be spoiling things for me. Because that's kind of fucking weird, that it calls it an honor blade rather than a shard blade. Okay, anyways. He realized... Okay, it doesn't say anything. I want to go back and listen to it because I'm fairly certain... What? Oh, I thought I heard the dog asking to go out. I'm fairly certain that Szeth talks about how he finds the Spren weird. And then we are later confirmed by outsiders that Shinovar doesn't have Spren. So I'm confused as to how he is a Surge Binder. Unless maybe the Spren of Shinovar just don't reveal themselves to anyone, including the Shin residents. Maybe they're all rune heads? Because it doesn't feel like the rune heads actually reveal themselves to people, whatever type of Spren they are. Except for very specific people? I don't know. Kind of fucking weird. Kind of a bit odd. I am watching the dog because I feel like she's doing something that she shouldn't be. I don't know why. I get that feeling. Hi, dog. You okay? Yeah. Hi. I hope I didn't miss you asking. I don't think you asked to go out, but I could be wrong. I'm going to take an earpiece out. Actually, why the fuck do I even have earpieces in? We're not listening to anything. I'm just so used to it when I stream. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the whole Szeth, Shinovar stuff. It's really kind of weighing on my brain as an open question that doesn't quite square with what we know so far. So I don't know. 58. This is when Adolin kind of starts questioning. And I think it's something that I have been actively complaining about as a reader since part 1. Maybe part 2. That the Alethi are at war, but they are not acting like it in the slightest. They are pretending like they are fucking in their home country. And the other thing that we get in this 58, which they never bring up again, is that Elhokar can see the rune heads. He doesn't say it, but he says it. He talks about seeing the rune heads in the mirror. Just straight up in chapter 58. Sadeas and Dalinar just brush past that shit. But Elhokar can see the rune heads, which is why, one of the reasons at least, that he's so paranoid. Oh, I might have to feed Bird here in a second. What time is it? Yeah, I have to feed Bird in 5 minutes. So Alexa, dismiss. So we'll break for that. That'll be good timing anyways. But which is interesting because Jasnah knows what the rune heads look like, but she obviously doesn't draw them like Shallan. And Elhokar talks about seeing the rune heads in mirrors. So I don't know And like my assumption up to this point is that Shallan can see the rune heads only because of her weird drawing ability, which is still unexplained, but that was my assumption. But it doesn't seem like Elhokar has any sort of ability like that. Like, he has shard plate and a shard blade, but he hasn't been narrated to have any other particular kind of ability, but it does seem like he can see the rune heads. I'm wondering if this is like a Harry Potter Thestral situation where it's like murderers can see the rune heads, and maybe like Elhokar killed someone that we don't know about, or maybe he witnessed his dad dying, but people don't know that. It's like only people that see the deaths of their fathers can see the rune heads. I don't know. Could it be connected to his father telling him about the book? Maybe, but I feel like at that point, Dalinar should be able to see the rune heads. And like, unless he has never brought it up, we have no reason to think that Dalinar can see the rune heads. So weird, right? Like, I don't know why he can. And it's not brought up the rest of the book. I thought it was going to get brought up during the confrontation between him and Dalinar, but it just doesn't. So that's another piece of information. It's like no Spren and Shinovar. There is no Warren Bossing say. There are no Spren and Shinovar. And Elhokar can see the rune heads. Those are like two pieces of information that are really weighing on my brain that that are like very open questions to me that I'm looking for answers for in the next book. Don't have anything to say about 59, I guess. I don't really remember what happened. Maybe it was short. In 60, though, I said I relate a lot to Dalinar, and the way that he conceded to Adolin at the beginning. So this is when Dalinar's like, yeah, you're right. I won't concede. I won't abdicate. When he's just like, yeah, Adolin, you're right. And Adolin's like, what the fuck? Excuse me? Paige says that I do that a lot when we're arguing of like, I will be defending my point rigorously right up until the point where she fully convinces me. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. She says it's very frustrating, apparently. Because she's like, wait, what? I'm right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's it. So I really related to that. Also, I mean, this is just like me shit, but this is just like, I don't know how the book made me feel. Journey Before Destination has been sticking with me a lot. Like, life before death, strength before weakness. I think that those are, I don't want to say, like, they just don't make as much of an impact on me as like a person. But Journey Before Destination, I wrote some stuff about it. I used to consider myself kind of an ends justify the means sort of guy. But the more I live and the more I experience those sorts of decisions, like decisions where I am making like ends justify the means sort of decisions, the more I find myself choosing the means. Like the more I find myself not justifying the ends, not justifying good ends through shitty means. And I think the more I have lived, the more I find myself realizing that if I justify bad means for my own good ends, the more I open myself up to allowing people to use bad means for bad ends. You know what I'm saying? Like, the more I have encountered people that do live as ends justify the means sort of people, they, even if they are going towards good ends, they find themselves falling in, I find, with people with bad ends. Right? Like when you are actively doing the bad means, you end up aligning yourself in and around people that are also doing the bad means, but towards bad ends as well. And I think that can corrupt your thinking a lot. So that is something that I've realized, and I think that's one of the things that I find myself really relating to with Dalinar and with the codes and all that. Obviously, I'm not as rigorous as Dalinar, but I do find myself relating to that a lot. Oh man, okay, so this is before the big Sadeas reveal. Oh wait, it's not the destination, it's the journey. As someone with chronic illness, it is the journey. Can't focus on the destination because that is unknown. I think the thing that I really like about the Radiant codes specifically, the way that it's always talked about, is that the destination is actually known. The destination is death. Everyone dies. No one is immortal. So we know everyone meets the same end, one way or another. It is about the journey that you take to that end. Because everyone, we all, we're born, we all live, and we all come back to death. So it is all about that middle, that segment, that journey. I don't know. That's really resonated with me and stuck with me a lot throughout this book. And it's also, I think, I don't know. I think the world kind of sucks a little bit. The news kind of sucks. And I think it's really easy to fall into a doomer mindset, which is basically like, what Kaladin struggles with throughout this book of like, being a doomer about like, he almost has the, that nihilistic point of view, which we talked about in chapter 1 of if we're all going to die anyways, what's the point? But you can really flip that into if we're all going to die anyways, the things that we do in the meantime are the only things that matter. Like, why not try to do something good? Why not try to make the journey as good as possible if we all just die at the end of it? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's stuck with me a lot. Book 3 will be fun. Fuck yeah. I'm pumped. We're jumping straight into Words of Radiance after this, which I've heard from non-fantasy circles, like non-fantasy book circles, that Words of Radiance is one of the best sequels to ever written. So I'm really stoked for that one. Yes, the same with chronic illness, but we don't like to think of it. It will probably be a painful death. Yeah, I get that. I relate to. I don't relate to a chronic illness necessarily because I don't have any sort of chronic illness, but I have lived with chronic pain and chronic numbness for a large portion of my life. After I got my my tumors, I guess lore drop for those who haven't. I think I've only talked about this like once or twice, and it was pretty early on. But I had 5 back tumors over the course of like 3 years or 5 years, I guess. It's just that they were grouped. And during those surgeries to get them removed, they had to get closer and closer to my spine. They had to remove some rib, well, a lot of rib. They had to break ribs. They had to take out a bunch of tissue, and they fucked with my nerves a lot. So I used to have chronic pain. Now I have some chronic pain, some chronic numbness. The numbness is way preferred. But yeah, I get that. I think a lot about. I have had to stare down, what the chronic pain will turn into eventually. But I try to think about it more. I think what you're saying is, I relate to of like not looking too closely at the end. Of like not liking to think about like what will eventually be. But I think if you look slightly beyond that to the very, very end, it's the eternal rest. So all you can do is live well in the meantime. I love it so far. Yeah, I really love it. I really, really like it. Yes, think about that. Think about today and what you are doing with people today. Yeah, because it'll be like, why be unhappy? It's one of the reasons that I don't fuck with social media a lot, is that a lot of social media, I think, there's this sense of getting informed. You know, when you're on like Twitter, Facebook, news outlets, whatever. There's a sense of being informed. And like, there are things that you do need to be informed about, especially, you know, if you live in a democracy where like you have to vote for people. Like, there are certain things to be informed about, but like in between voting sessions, I find like, does it really matter? Like, I only make my life worse, and I normally can't affect most things that are happening. So that is like a choice that I have made for myself to make my journey easier. It's like, there's like a few things that I care about, and I keep up on those, and I really try to avoid other stuff, because if I care about too much, I will just like make my life worse and not do anything about it. Anyways, we're well out of the book at this point. So let's dive back into it. Sadeas, the quote stuck out to me. If Sadeas was once a friend, I believe he can be again. Uh-oh. And this is where I got nervous. I said, I'm sort of nervous about Sadeas. I'm conflicted with how he's acting to/around Dalinar versus the way that people in his camp say he is reacting, R.E. Kaladin Stormblessed. The two Sadeases certainly aren't mutually exclusive. It could easily all be true, but it feels different. It feels like one of them's a front. Uh-oh. And then I go on to pick the wrong horse. I say, I'm not sure if this is the unreliability of Dalinar as a narrator spinning Sadeas in a slightly rosier light, or if it's the unreliability of stories about what Sadeas thinks of Kaladin. Sadeas could have all but forgotten Kaladin, and lads below him are making judgments and decisions in his name. Maybe this is my Dalinar bias, but I want to believe Sadeas. Oh no. And regardless of the actual morality of the Bridgemen themselves, the way he is said to be treating people, R.E. Kaladin seems off. Uh-oh, I bet on the wrong possibility. I was just wrong about that. Well, what are you gonna do? Also, what the fuck happened to Gaz? He's just gone? They just fucking offed him in the night? Like, is he gonna come back? We had a POV chapter with Gaz, and he's just out? What the fuck? So I don't know what the fuck's happening there. But with that, we're a little bit less than halfway through. Although, honestly, the next few chapters start going by really fucking quick, so I actually didn't have even that many notes. So I think we'll get through the next part pretty quick. But really quickly, I'm gonna feed the dog. Take a quick break. So let me. I'm gonna put on some musica first. I need to find like royalty free. I know of some royalty free music. Maybe I'll just put on like Hall of the Mountain King, because I know you can just put that shit on. Let's see, creator music. What are some free ones? But yeah, so I'm gonna put on a little bit of that, and then oh, there's a winter mix track. Never mind, there's not. What the fuck? And so yeah, I'm gonna go and feed the dog lunch, and I will be right back. There we go. Is it playing? Yeah. Alright. See you in a second. I forgot to unmute. That sounded loud as fuck. I'm sorry about that. Was that loud? I could hear it from like over there. But I was too busy feeding the puppy. It got louder. Oh no. Well, I am sorry about that. Yeah, you were waiting to find Gaz in the caverns? I know, right? I kept thinking that something like that would happen. But, regardless, 61. I found it the only thing that I actually found, like, it was cool. Like, their plan and everything, like, Kaladin's plan, it felt interesting, it felt cool. The only thing that actually, like, surprised me, or, like, I thought was of note, really, was that the chapter was called Three Glyphs, which is only brought up at the very end. Like, it's at the very beginning. You know, he has the three glyph prayer. And then at the very end, someone's like, maybe I should fucking get some glyphs. And then no one brings up again that they think like his luck was because of the prayer or the glyphs. Like they don't talk about that in future chapters. But these chapters are not named randomly, right? Like these chapters are very purposefully named. So I don't know. It's making me think about the whole, like, prayer burning stuff. And, like, how the glyphs interact. Especially because at the end we got Ars Arcanum, which I didn't listen to in too much detail, frankly, because a lot of it was describing magical systems that I don't have a huge frame of reference for. And Mistborn did the exact same shit, where it's like, oh yeah, listening to the Ars Arcanum after you've read the third book is very interesting, but until then, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. The glyphs were... It makes me think that there's some shit going on with the glyphs. That's not just... It's not just, you know, what it is. You know? I've got my eye on the glyphs. Yeah, I don't know. Because I literally say, I'm like, I guess it's because Bridgman are attributing the success of the glyphs seems a bit low importance to be the name of a chapter, so I'm still suspicious. I am still suspicious. I also found, okay, this is one thing that I found slightly, I don't want to say like contradictory. That's not the right word. Interesting. And it might just be like a cut for... That's what it feels like, something that was cut for time, like within the book, that like wasn't maybe explored all the way. Was Kaladin in 63 really effortlessly shares the burden of leadership and planning with Rock and Sigil, where he like Rock, like he like shares like his thoughts and his feelings, and like on like the potential escape plan with them, and like he's like pretty effortless about it, whereas previously he was very like, I'll fucking handle it, like, oh man, I have all this responsibility on my shoulders. And then he just like really effortlessly transitions. And like, I don't want to say like fully effortlessly. Like obviously there is progression within his like character and thought process. So like, that's why I say I don't quite know what the word for this is, because it didn't feel out of place necessarily, but it didn't feel like it got the weight that maybe it deserved as like a kind of a real change within him. And I don't know. It wasn't like bad. It didn't feel off, but it felt like I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a big ass moment. And the narrative did not really give it the weight that I felt like it deserved. Maybe that's just me. And again, I feel like maybe it just like, hit like the publishing room floor. Like maybe there was originally a bit more narrative weight on it, but it got cut for time. You know, books are a zero-sum game. You can't include everything you want to. So I would get that. Okay, and I do need to take her out because she just ate, and basically any time after she eats, we try to take her out instantly when she asks. I can see that. No real history as to why he changed from internalized things to talking things through. Yeah, that's kind of... And like... When I look at the meta narrative of like his character progression, that feels like the right beat to hit in that moment. Like it feels like that beat is correctly placed, but it feels like I'm missing like the context on either side of it. You know? Like, it feels like he should have had like a moment afterwards where he's like, "Whoa, I just like did that," but he didn't. I don't know. Again, feels like maybe it was cut for time. Whereas like the actual beat itself was maintained. Gotta take her out really fast. Sorry to do 2 really quick BRBs, but I'll be right back. I'm just gonna leave it silent this time so that I don't fuck you guys with the music. What's back? I was gonna say what's up. I'm back, but I just said what's back. How you doing? Okay. So yeah, so that was just kind of weird with Kaladin, but not too. I wouldn't say too crazy. Whoa, hello camera. That was fucking odd. Okay. 64, I literally just had yikes on Sadius taking credit for the whole like armor Bridgman thing. And I mean, the Parshendi are meant to be kind of a confusing enigma. So, it's appropriate that I am confused by them. But I still can't really figure out why the Parshendi don't send their shard bearers out. The entire war on the Shattered Plains is still very weird. Like, and the Parshendi motivations are very odd. Like, Kaladin calls out, like, oh, the professional army that I was looking for. Like, they're fucking here, they're just the Parshendi. And it's like, yeah. So what's the point to them? Like, if they're not trying to win, are they trying to win? I can't tell. Like, I think that's the weirdest thing to me, is that I can't tell if the Parshendi are trying to win or, like, frankly, like, what they're doing at all on the Shattered Plains. And it's a dogfighting arena. We have surrounded them in walls, so they feel even more comfortable going at it. Oh, hey. God, Bird is almost as big as Bug now. It's crazy. Bug is still so much more muscular, but Bird is, I think, has a little bit more endurance. Like, I think almost every single one of Bug's, like, I think Bug's strength and dex are still much higher than hers, but Bird's constitution is definitely higher than Bug's, I think. Anyways, hey, no barking. She's going to have a very loud bark someday. We do not want to encourage that. But anyways, that is still like an open question that I don't feel like I'm any closer to answering. On like, why the fuck are the Parshendi here? Even knowing that they are the Voidbringers, which I have my theories about. Which I have my theories about, but I cannot figure out for the life of me why they are fighting on the Shattered Plains. I still can't figure it out. So I don't know. It's odd. Oh, yeah, so the Thrill. Let's talk about the Thrill. The Thrill almost sounds similar to Stormlight, but I don't think that both Adolin and Dalinar are Surge Binders. And I'm debating if the Thrill is like just a cultural thing that they don't talk about, or if it is like a metaphysical magic thing. And I have a theory, but it has to do with my very big swings that are based on Mistborn knowledge. So I won't say too much. But my general theory goes that there's the Almighty, who we now know God is dead. There's the Almighty, and then there's the enemy of the Almighty. The Almighty refers to like he, and he, just knows if he can pit you against each other, etc., etc. Hey. Cool off. That he doesn't need to fight you if he can just pit you against each other, etc., etc. I can't talk too much about the theory, but I have a feeling that the Thrill is from this enemy, that it is like part of that metaphysical magic. Now again, can't talk too much in detail about it, but that is the general theory right now. Which also like makes sense. Like once Dalinar starts following the codes, which are very clearly more like Almighty rooted, that he starts like getting nauseous and not really liking the Thrill anymore. Also, fucking crazy. I did not see the betrayal coming. Obviously, I thought that there was a chance that Sadeas was going to be good. So I really didn't see the betrayal coming. I thought my thought about what was going to happen is I thought going into that tower assault, I thought we were going to see a Parshendi Shardbearer. Ding for the old megaphone man. But I thought that the conflict and that the drama at the tower was going to be, yo, fucking Plateau Assault works great. And that we were going to have a conflict where Dalinar is like facing down a Parshendi Shardbearer. They've all but won the entire assault. And that Dalinar basically beats the Shardbearer in combat. And Sadeas rolls up and he's like, aha, my friend, like, give him the finishing blow. And then Dalinar was going to lose the thrill, was going to be like, I can't, kill this dude. And Sadeas was going to be like, what the fuck? You told me you were going to kill these dudes. You told me you were going to give me a Shardblade. You kill that fucking dude. And that Dalinar was going to be like, I can't. And that was going to be the drama. That's what I thought. And that they were going to, like, capture the Shardbearer. Like, the Dalinar was going to be, like, basically, like, if I get you the Shardblade, like, I get to, like, take him back. And I thought they were going to, like, capture the Parshendi Shardbearer. Clearly not what happened. So that was crazy. The whole betrayal I did not see coming. I was in denial about what was happening for about as long as Dalinar was. So yeah. And then I said, my only mental saving grace here is that either one, Kaladin's bridge will stay, let's go, put a point on the board, or two, Adolin/Dalinar will get captured rather than killed, and we get a big lore dump. It didn't happen, but I think I saved like half a point there. I got a spare rather than maybe not a spare, maybe like 5 pin. So 66, I think that Syl is a glory spren. That's why she hates dishonesty, and she's infecting Kaladin. She's not a glory spren. She's an honor spren, I think is what she said. But I was close. I also liked the quote, if nobody starts, nobody can follow. It's a nice little bitty quote. 67, oh my god, when they side carried. Dude, I was rising out of my seat when they did the side carry. I was waiting for it. I was like, they can't just put that away. So I was cheered in my seat when they side carried. Oh yeah, I don't even remember what I was crying at. I was crying during 67. I just haven't noted. No idea what I was crying at. Let's see. Let's go take a fun little look at what happened in 67. 67 was the words of radiance. Oh, this is when I think this is when Tien dies. Yeah, it's Tien. Yeah, it's Tien's death. Yeah, I mean this entire fucking chapter, man. Later. You guys are just mad that mom is gone. Later. Yeah. But also the nice little bitty about him like sucking all the stormlight out of their beards. I thought that was nice. But yeah, just the entire thing. Yeah, just a good chapter. I got nothing else to say about it. Good chapter. Really ties together a lot of things that have been foreshadowed really well. And like, oh, I remember what I was sobbing yeah, I won't even talk too much about it because I don't want to talk too much about Tien's death because it was just incredibly sad. And yeah, but that was, I had to read that during the day and not at night like I normally do just to avoid too much crying. It was crazy. Yeah, I was wondering if it would hit, and it hit for me. Yeah, it hit for me. All right. 68. Moving on. Got not too much else to say about that. Comparing, in this, at like almost the very beginning of 68, they compare Kaladin to a Spren. And to me, that actually seems significant. It was played as this like very like offhand thing. But with everything that Syl has talked about, this is what I wrote down. With them giving each other something, it seems like Surge Binders, which is what I'm assuming at this point Kaladin is, are somehow like part Spren. It definitely seems like that comparison. Like, to me, that seems like an odd thing to just whip out of nowhere as you're looking at him. But to someone who like lives and breathes in this world and like has actually seen Spren, maybe that's, not as weird of a comparison. And so the fact that someone from this world made that comparison seems significant to me, especially with everything else that we know about Spren and Surge Binders so far. I thought that Kaladin might get a Shard Blade. He did not. So, and then doggies later. I just took you out. I know. You are very sad. And you're very cute. Boop, boop. Hey, puppy. There was a quote that I wrote down called that said the glory of what he, this is Kaladin speaking in his mind. The glory of what he did seemed at odds with the desolation he caused. And I was like, that's a kind of a specific word choice to use. So I'm not quite sure. I don't have anything deeper than that, but it seemed kind of specific, especially with what we later learn about the desolations. Just like also, so Kaladin has been having the dreams occasionally. Obviously, Dalinar has the visions. My theory is that the Parshendi Shardbearer, like he was like, oh, it's you to Dalinar. I think that the Parshendi Shardbearer must have been having the dreams, similar to Kaladin, that like specifically highlighted Dalinar's like face, I think. And that's why that was said. I think that the dreams must be coming to multiple people because it doesn't even seem like what we later learn. The Almighty doesn't even know who the dreams are going to. So it seems like there is basically some sort of environment. Honey. Later. We were just outside. Yeah, come here. But yeah, it seems like the cause of the dreams is not, shall we say, like purposeful. Like it seems like the Almighty, or whatever's left that's sending these visions, is not really consciously aware of who they're going to. It seems like there is like some sort of like magical like thing that you activate that makes you start receiving the visions. I don't know if it's the words of radiance. I don't know what the deal is there. But it seems like that is what makes you start having the dreams. Thank you, Summer. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, especially with them being the bigger memberships. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Which, by the way, I am considering ways to potentially like lower the gifted option. But it's hard. I would basically have to make the other tier more expensive, which I don't really want to do. So that's, I don't know, it's hard. But thank you. Thank you so much. So with that, so this is when I still didn't know that the dreams weren't like conscious. I thought that he needed to trust Sadeas, that the dream kind of did lie to him, but it was like to an end so that Sadeas could betray him, leaving him there on the tower. You know, it's not just to unite all the high princes. He'll unite the light eyes, the dark eyes. He'll unite all of them, which I still do think is kind of part of the deal. Girl. Okay, honestly, I know that I'm being like very distracted by the dog. I wouldn't. I would just take her, but she's been constipated lately. So a lot of the times she'll act like she has to go, and so she went from having diarrhea constantly to now being constipated. Very 180. So I'm very used to like her, like, you know, us being like, oh, like, don't, like, you know, like, wait for a second, and then just her just having diarrhea. So I'm really worried about that. Um, One second. Oh. But the issue is when she was having diarrhea, a lot of times we could just go out and she would fucking empty, and then we would, you know, come back in and it'd be, you know, fine. So I could basically just like trust that like whenever she asked, she needed to go. But now she'll ring the bell, I think because she's constipated and she feels like she has to go out, but then we go out and she doesn't go at all. And so I don't want to like reinforce that it's just like we just like go around and like sniff around and don't do anything. So I don't know, it's hard. Um Greetings, just listening, lurking, throwing some positive reinforcement for people. Love enjoying the vibes. Thanks, Summer. I appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. Um Anyway, so I thought that the visions when I thought the visions were still purposeful, that they were like going towards uniting all of them, which I still kind of do think, especially given that the visions are not, you know, bespoke, let's say. I still think that it does mean unite Roshar, not, you know, unite the High Princes. It's not just like unite the Alethi. It's unite everyone. Um, I still think that. Later. All right, I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna do it one more time. But that's it for a while. Okay. Ah. Again, I just don't want to like go out with her and just nothing happens, but I also don't want her to be uncomfortable and to shit indoors. So I don't know. But I'll be right back. I'll be right back. All right, chat. We got to be united on this. This little boy who cried wolf does not, even though she's so cute, she does not get to go out again. Because she just walked around, didn't do anything, didn't pee, didn't poop, and then just tried to eat shit. I love her so much, but she's frustrating. Okay. So, my theory with Dalinar is that not only, I think that we see later with Taravangian that Taravangian is mastermind boy that seems to be trying to unite Roshar in some degree. But he is now going to try to take out Dalinar. I think that Taravangian is going to eventually be, maybe like book 2, book 3, big bad. And I think it is going to be like Taravangian versus Dalinar at some point to not only unite Alethkar, but to unite like a bunch of the Roshar kingdoms and nations. Because he has said, he would never take Gavilar's throne. But he's giving up his restrictions with Navani. And I think maybe he doesn't give up his restriction of being king. Maybe he doesn't take Gavilar's throne away from Elhokar. But my thought is that maybe he becomes like emperor or something. Because it's like unite all of them. So I could see that being potential, but he's fucking old. So maybe he unites them all under Adolin? Doesn't really seem like Adolin's beat. Maybe he unites them all under Renarin. I could see that being very possible. And that Renarin becomes like emperor of a bunch of nations. I don't know. We will see. Also, I love that like Sadeas's lies like almost instantly come back. Like, he doesn't know that they're instantly coming back, but him being like, I saw them carrying away pieces of bloodied plate. And, it was great dramatic irony. Sometimes you just gotta feed, like, cheap popcorn to your readers, to your audience, of, like, Sadeas going on and on about how fucking Dalinar was brutally murdered. He's like, I'm so sorry, as we already know that he's just marching back to camp. Just a nice, cheap little treat, and I loved every second of it. Just a little bit of dramatic irony for the taste buds. That was great. Also, I'll say, kudos to Brando Sando, because the motivation of Dalinar is infecting Elhokar with his weakness, with what Sadeas perceives as weakness. That is maybe because I was having an equal amount of trouble as Dalinar really like understanding why Sadeas would do this when like things were working out. And the whole, like, you make everyone follow the codes, I was like, okay, like, that's a bit childish from this High Prince, which, I mean, they are kind of children, whatever. But Dalinar infecting Elhokar and, like, weakening Elhokar. That's maybe one of the only actual explanations where I'm like, if you think that, hey, wait, is that a rock? Oh my God. She went out, did nothing, and smuggled back in a rock. You're gonna chip a tooth, baby. You. God damn it. She's gonna give me fucking heartburn. Anyways. But yeah, that was a good explanation to me for Sadeas's motivations. And it was that I did not think that I was going to be satisfied, honestly. Like when that like started happening, I was like, I don't feel like Sadeas's motivation is going to make sense to me. But it did. Also, I wondered during the whole, like, I give up my shard blade, whatever. I wondered if he realized that Kaladin was a Surgebinder. Because he was talking about how something stuck out to him about the Nohadon vision. Like he was talking about like that vision, I think on the way back to camp, about how something was like kind of eating at him about the vision, but he wasn't quite sure what yet. No, later. He wasn't quite sure what it was. And he never directly states what it was. So it's kind of up to us. And I think there's kind of two interpretations. Hi. I'm wondering, I think that the more likely interpretation is that, because he sort of brings it up, of like, that was him at the end of his life. Before he was this like peace bringer, he, had to unite them through the sword. I'm not a fucking scholar. I'm a warlord. I think that is something. I am wondering though, a little bit, whether or not he subconsciously realizes that Kaladin is a Surgebinder. Because Nohadon part of, like, one of the centerpieces of that vision was Nohadon talking about Surgebinders. So I'm kind of wondering, but he doesn't know what a Surgebinder is. So I don't know. I think I might be reading a bit too much into it. But something about that still kind of tickles my brain. I don't know. Also, I was thinking about all of the thematics of that entire scene of like Dalinar giving up the shard blade, right? And I wrote this little bit about it. It is incredibly nicely thematic that this Light Eyes is redeeming himself and potentially the possibility of goodness in general to Kaladin, specifically by giving up a shard blade. Kaladin's hatred really took hold with the shard blades, and now it will end there. Szeth spoke of the blades as curses, and now Dalinar, through honor, through the codes, through the words of radiance, has broken the curse. It was very nice. And like later on, Syl talks about how she doesn't like the shard blades. Like, the giving up of the shard blade is so thematic in so many ways of Dalinar's personal journey, but it is also thematic to gaining Kaladin's trust. And I don't know, I really liked that. I liked that moment a lot. Why Syl doesn't like shard blades? Oh yeah, okay, so this has to do with I have a very distinct idea of why she doesn't like the shard blades, but it is very heavily tied to Mistborn knowledge. So, I will save it. But yeah, I really, really loved it. That entire moment. It felt so nice all the way around to me. What's up? She's fucking asshole. Taken her out 3 times. Last time, didn't do anything but smuggle a rock back in. She's a rock smuggler. Now she's got your shoe. When Kaladin had the opportunity to have the shards, he stated he didn't like them either. Yeah, but I think that like he didn't like them because of what they represent. Which is fair. So I think again, it like this idea of Dalinar, the man of honor, giving up this shard blade for Kaladin where the last Light Eyes, the Light Eyes Amaram that really took hold of his heart, betrayed him for a shard blade. So it's like a very nice bookend symbolism of this Light Eyes betrayed me and my men and every shred of honor that he had built in my eyes, all for a shard blade. As opposed to Dalinar giving up the shard blade for a bunch of worthless bridgemen. But not worthless, priceless. It was really cool. I liked it a lot. Also, it's insane how long coming this has been. With Sadeas' first description mentioning his desire for a blade. Like, I think it's like maybe the first paragraph where Sadeas is introduced, maybe the second, where it talks about how he fucking wants a blade. Like, that is one of Sadeas' core traits. It is like one of the only things we should be expected to remember about Sadeas is that he wants a fucking blade. A desire that would override anything else. I think that this book is kind of a textbook lesson in how to use the motivations and the desires of characters. And I think that Sadeas, I already kind of hit on it earlier, but I think that Sadeas is one of the prime examples of that. Also, I literally have a line in it that's just heart, Dalinar. Heart. This also makes sense to what he's learned. Noadon said this is a time for the sword. Dalinar isn't a scribe. He isn't a wordsmith. He's a general. So I liked a lot of the endings with Dalinar in this chapter. Also, there was a bit earlier about how some Alethi High Princes purposefully don't have like shard blades and plate, and they use champions instead, which, with Adolin's like passion for dueling and all of this, it like makes, I think, a lot of sense for him to become like Dalinar's champion and like the Kholin champion. So it makes even more sense for Dalinar to not have the blade and plate. Also, big future read, because the only thing I know about Book 3 is that it's called Oathbringer, which is the name of the shard blade that Dalinar just gave to Sadeas. So my big read is that it is either about Sadeas or, I think maybe even more likely, Sadeas' son's path to redemption. I think Sadeas' son is either going to be like one of the main characters or the main POV character, using Dalinar's blade to become like a central pillar of like justice and hope. Very similar to something that I predicted in, I think, part 2, where I thought that Adolin and Dalinar were going to split, and that book 3 was going to be about Adolin like coming back around on Dalinar. But now that Adolin and Dalinar are firmly together and Dalinar has given his blade to Sadeas, I think it could be about Sadeas's either him himself or his descendants kind of coming back to justice and hope. Okay. 70. We're back to Shallan. Now, I am a registered Shallan hater, but I'll admit, this part brought me a little bit back around on her. Because it was her actually like knowing and intuiting things, which are things that I feel like she should have been doing the whole time. Like, for the one of the first times, I was like, oh man, this is like actual Shallan. I feel like for the first time. And maybe that's just me being rude. Maybe it's me being mean. But I liked her more in this one. Also, I thought about this more during this chapter. I thought I'd written it down during the Vision chapter, but I didn't. Noadon referred to Surge Binders and Soulcasters definitely as people. And what's more, Dalinar has asserted over and over again that the Ancients didn't have Fabrials. In fact, like, Navani specifically pushes back on that point And he's like, nope, I'm sure of it. They didn't have Fabrials. But Noadon refers to Soulcasters. So that is, during that chapter is where I kind of put together that, like, oh, at some point in the past, Soulcasters were people. And the same way that Kaladin the Surgebinder's back, Yasna the Soulcaster is back. Not a Fabrial, like an actual person. Did not predict that she was a person. I thought that her Fabrial was real. But makes total sense. It also seems to relate to, like, the Desolations and the Everstorm, I'm thinking. At least I somewhat think. I'm wondering if Yasna has been searching for an explanation of her abilities this whole time. Which it doesn't really seem like that. It seems like she is just searching, like, the Voidbringers, but I think her abilities and, like, her search about them is part of it. But, oh, do you want me to move the camera? Yeah. All right. But yeah, I'm very also interested in Shadesmar, because Shadesmar does not seem like where any of the visions take place. It seems like very much like a soul casting thing. So I wonder if Shadesmar is like the soul, or if it's like the quantum realm from from Ant-Man. I don't know. I still don't know exactly what the deal with Shadesmar is. But I'm wondering if, like, Soulcasters and Surgebinders only come back near Desolations, because obviously we see, like, 5 chapters later, fucking Tollinel, the Herald, blah 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 blah. Whatever the Herald was, Talonel, I think, Tollinel. He's back. Which, like, the only thing we fucking know about the Heralds is that they come back during Desolations. So I'm wondering if, like, Soulcasters and Surgebinders also only come back, like, in the generation, like, within, like, 100 years of a Desolation or something. Because Noadon talks about, like, them, like, forgetting their past and their history. Like, Noadon, like, way back in the past. So I'm wondering if that's, like, part of it, where, you know, every, like, Desolation cycle, they forget about, like, what a Desolation is, because they lose the Surgebinders, they lose the Soulcasters, and then they all come back right before a Desolation to help fight it, kind of like the Heralds. I don't know. I'm also wondering if the Heralds go to Shadesmar. Because Shadesmar seems like a fucked joint that, like, Yasna's like, you don't even know what the fuck you're doing. And so I'm wondering if the Heralds just, like, chill out in Shadesmar. Well, chill out. Go to a very unhappy part of Shadesmar. In between Desolations. I don't know. Just kind of some random swings that I'm making. Also, in 71, I realized that there are really frequent references to arrow-like features. The Voidbringers had them. I'm fairly certain that Wit/Hoid was described as having arrow-like features. And now, Taravangian, very clearly, you know, part of some cult, I'm assuming, has these arrow-like features. Also, welcome, Ryan Mulligan. Howdy doodly. Good to have you. So yeah, I feel like the arrow-like features are something. Again, it's sort of like Shadesmar. It's like the No Spren and Shinovar. Like, these are things that I'm picking up on as important, but I don't feel like I have enough context for why yet. It also seems like the Taravangian knows about the Everstorm, or knows about the Desolation, or whatever. Like, I thought I did not, even for a moment, pick up that Taravangian was the one collecting the death rattles. And it's the best kind of reveal where it makes every lick of sense in retrospect of like Taravangian, the builder of hospitals in Kharbranth, the city of information. Like, yeah, sure, I guess, but I don't know. It feels a little off. It doesn't feel off until you think about it, and then like the moment that this is revealed, of like, oh, come to Kharbranth from all over to get healed, so that we can take the worst cases and bleed them for death rattles. Fucking crazy. Yeah, man. That's why he set up all the hospitals. Then he takes him to the ICU and collects the death rattles. Also, can Szeth literally hear screams? Because, like, he's talking about how he can, like, hear the screams of his victims. Is that him going insane? Because he is clearly going insane. But I wrote down, like, is it, like, Spren? Is it Runeheads? Is it Death Spren? Like, I'm wondering if Szeth can literally hear screams. Like, he's talking about, like, hearing screams from beneath the beds. And I'm like, that's a little specific. And, like, but it comes back to the unreliable narrator thing of, like, Szeth is maybe one of the most unreliable narrators. And so I really can't tell if he is, like, if there's something to that. Because I feel like there is. I feel like maybe he can, like, hear Death Spren. Or something. I don't know. Also, got TBH kind of shocked that Dalinar wasn't already on the list, but whatever. Yeah, Runeheads or Spren. I think Jasnah is... Oh, yeah. So I said I think Jasnah is finally going to return to the Shattered Plains. Let's go. She does. Also, I think... I don't know when this will happen in Words of Radiance. I think that her, Kaladin, who is now part of Dalinar's personal guard, her, Kaladin, Adolin the Champion, and so it's going to be Adolin the Shardbearer, Kaladin the Surgebinder, and Jasnah the Soulcaster are all three going to go up against Szeth. They are going to be the actual, like, potentially showdown, can maybe match Szeth, and maybe kill him. And it's going to be while Szeth is attempting to kill Dalinar. Is that these three are going to go up against Szeth. I have a feeling maybe the end of part 1 of Words of Radiance. That's my prediction. But I also think that I don't even know if they kill Szeth. I think it will involve Dalinar, the man of codes and honor, freeing Szeth, the other man of codes and honor, but like to a very different tone. I think it will involve him freeing Szeth from his honor-bound duty. Now, that could mean death for Szeth, but I do think that the end of part 1, or whenever, Szeth tries to kill Dalinar, whatever, I think it will be the end of the Assassin in White. I don't know if that means Szeth will still be around, but I think the Assassin in White will be done after part 1 of Words of Radiance. Yeah, and I did not see the Parsh people equal Voidbringers. Didn't see that for a moment. I didn't even know that was like, I didn't even realize that was like an open question. I was like, because we had talked about how in the visions that he sees things that he thinks are Voidbringers, and then he talks to the Knights Radiant, and she's like, oh no, those aren't Voidbringers, those are blah blah blah. And that they were like, oh, those aren't Voidbringers, but I had just thought like, oh yeah, like that specific thing is not a Voidbringer, but it's gonna be, something else. Whoa. My God, this light reflecting off my hand. That's crazy. It's forming a fucking shadow. Anyways. But yeah, the Parsh people equaling Voidbringers never had crossed my mind. Fucking crazy. 4 versus 1 fight, let's go. I mean, Szeth has faced down much worse odds So I think they're going to need a 4 versus 1 to even have a hope of defeating Szeth. But yeah, the Parch people who win Voidbringer is fucking crazy. Also, I thought that the at what point does appearance become reality? Sort of a hot question. Like, it's something that me and Paige have talked about before. Of like, does altruism like really exist? And does it matter if altruism actually exists if something so consistently has the appearance of altruism? Although something that I thought was really interesting about that question being brought up in this book is that Taravangian is sort of the direct argument against that. That, like, there's a lot of appearance of altruism, but he's clearly a bad fucking dude. So I think he's kind of, that was a very interesting corollary that I don't know if it was purposeful, but if it was, I thought it was very cool. 73 and 74, I didn't even write down anything. But then 75, oh boy. Okay. I think we're going to kind of have to wrap it up for the Stormlight only. Because I mean, so we'll wrap it up with like very interesting that all of the Almighty recordings are basically pre-recorded. I don't know there's anything that we can really gather from that. Except for that I think that the story that Wit told was about, the death of the Emperor was probably about the Almighty. But I don't know that there's too much we can draw from it other than that. Oh, hey Dalinar, like you've been listening to a fucking voicemail inbox, not an actual dude. But I think that's about where I can wrap up the no spoilers conversation. So, if anyone wants to talk any more no Mistborn spoiler stuff, I think we gotta talk through it now because I think I gotta transition into the Mistborn spoilers to even like really talk about 75. I don't think it's gonna be too long. I think it'll maybe be like 15 minutes, half an hour, but I have some big swings that I'm taking. Okay. Fair, yeah. It's really hard because and I'll tell you exactly why it's hard and why like I can't even talk about it in vague terms. Because one of the problems here is that like the things that I am thinking about the Almighty are very heavily based on my knowledge of like how gods work from Mistborn. The really big problem is that I can't even talk about it in the abstract because the question of how gods work is like one of the central questions of the original Mistborn trilogy. So, like, I can't even, like, really talk in vague terms. Like, I'm gonna talk in as vague of terms as I can, but, like, it will answer, like, some fundamental questions, like the things that I'm going to say during, like, the first 2 books of Mistborn Part 1. So, with all that being said, I'm gonna get into it. You have been warned. You can click off. I love you. Goodbye. Okie dokie. So, I think that the place that the visions, Dalinar talks about how this is like the first vision. I think that this vision and the next vision are both visions of the cognitive realm. The place where Kelsier and Vin have gone and like where they could talk to Fuzz and Ruin. I think that is the cognitive realm. And when the Almighty talks about the visions of the future, it sounds very much like what Kelsier and Vin and Alendi and Fuzz all describe when they talk about what looking into the future is like for a shard. And when I say shard, I mean a shard of Adalnasium. I'm pretty sure that this cultivation shard is new. I don't recognize it from anywhere. And And so now my big swings, and part of why I think Syl does not like the Shard Blades, has to do with what shard I think the Almighty was. I think that the Almighty's shard was something like connection or bond or binding. I'm going with connection for now. I think that is the shard that the Almighty carried, or that the Almighty bore. And I think that whoever the Almighty is fighting against, the he, is separation. Right? I think those are kind of our divine duelists, our connection and separation, very similar to preservation and ruin, right? That's why I think the wrongness that Dalinar observes in that dust cloud is so interesting. Like the high storms, with their rain infused with creme, like represents bonds. It represents connection. It's life. It is like the mud that sticks things together. Even like the creme that builds up on the sides of buildings, the high storms like connect, you know? Separation is the dust cloud. It is like the thing that erodes. It is entropy. And so I think that that's why Dalinar looks at like the front, the dust cloud, and like feels like it's so wrong. I think that is from separation. And my prediction for the thing that turns the Parsh people into Voidbringers is the destruction of their telepathy. I think that while they have the telepathy, while they have the bond, while they have the connection, that is while they are chill. But if that connection is destroyed, they like go insane and they turn into the Voidbringers. Also, the Almighty being something like connection is supported by Syl's explanation of the Surgebinder powers, that they have a connection, that they give each other something. Hell, I mean, even the name Surgebinder, like binding, is kind of a clue to me. The lashings all bind things. In fact, the only magic that is looked upon with disdain by any of the characters are the Shard Blades. They are a curse. They separate soul from body. And according to Szeth, they are a curse. So, like, I think that is why Syl does not like the Shard Blade, is because she is of the Almighty. She's of the Almighty's magic. The Shard Blades are not. I think the Shard Blades are of separation. Of separation. And I think that the Oath Pact, and maybe the reason that the Heralds, like, go to the place of torment, is because they, like, basically, like, made a deal with the devil. They made, like, a bargain with separation to give them the blades to deal with the Voidbringers. Alternatively, I could also see, this is another huge fucking swing here. Huge swing. So, and it's also very integrally linked to my Mistborn knowledge. So, preservation, Fuzz, doesn't die immediately. Like, when he is killed by Ruin, by, I can't remember Ruin's real name. Anyways, when he's killed by Ruin, he does not die immediately. He is preserved. His personality, his identity is preserved as Fuzz long after he actually died because of the nature of the shard that he holds. It remembers. And so I have a big swing that I think by reuniting the Dawnblades, which I believe the Dawnblades are the Herald's Shard Blades, I think that when separation killed Connection, he didn't actually kill him. He separated connection into the shard blades. Into the dawn blades, I should say. And is like he's like, oh, like twisting his power for separation or whatever. And I think by reuniting all of the Dawn Blades, it will reform Connection's original personality. I think that character, the actual bearer of the Connection shard, will come back. Now, I don't know. It seems interesting. I don't know if, because I know that shards of Adelnosium can be splintered, which sounds like being destroyed. I don't think that Connection has been destroyed. I think he has been separated. And that is like, I was sort of on that biddy a while ago with like thinking that, like, you know, there's like 16 shards of Adelnosium, there's going to be like 16 Dawn Blades, but that doesn't really make sense because there were only 10 heralds. So I don't know the exact specifics of like the numbers or anything. But I do, I'm thinking, and that's why the Almighty is constantly like, unite them. You can only like fight this together if you unite them, if you have connection. And so I really think, oh yeah, and also the way that you soulcast, the way that you reach Shadesmar, it looks like, is by offering a truth, like connecting to the Spren through honesty. Little bit of a reach, but yeah. And he says that Odium has killed him, which I think that Odium must be in the same way that, like, the Almighty, I think, is going to be another word for the person that, you know, is Connection. I think Odium is another word for separation. I think maybe even a word in the Dawn Chant. So I think that might be a big reveal, is that Odium, they're going to translate the Dawn Chant using Dalinar's visions, and that Odium is a word in the Dawn Chant language for separation. And that's why Connection says separation has killed me. Those are my big swings. Because I don't think that the Almighty and that shard in general is actually splintered. I think he is just separated. Because I can't get over the name Shard Blades. I can't get over it. Like, Odium is a word. It has meaning. Odium is a word? Yeah, but this seems to be like a name. I mean, I guess that's fair. I guess this isn't like general or widespread hatred or disgust directed towards someone as a result of their actions. His job had made him the target of public hostility and odium. I was killed by odium. I'm going to stick to my... That's fair. I actually didn't realize that odium was just like a word. But yeah, I think that odium is a shard. And I still think it's something like separation. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe that is literally... Maybe that is literally the shard, like Ruin, is just odium. Like that could just be the shard name. So what would that make the Almighty then, if he's not connection? I get... Syl is an honor spren. So I did think at one point, like, maybe the Almighty is, like, honor. Like, that's his shard. That doesn't really track with me. I don't know. General or widespread hatred or disgust towards someone as a result of their actions. Maybe it's, like, understanding. Seems kind of lame, if you ask me. I like mine better. I mean, I guess odium is sort of division. Sort of similar to that. I don't know. That's interesting. General or widespread hatred or disgust directed towards someone as a result of their actions. So yeah, I guess the corollary would be like understanding. Huh. Man. Or maybe... maybe it is still like a separation connection thing, but the thing that ultimately killed the Almighty was people's hatred of the Voidbringers. Like, it was so separating to them. I don't know. That's interesting. Man. That threw me through a loop. That throws my kind of whole theory through a loop. We'll have to see. I don't know. Odium has killed me. Odium has killed me. Or maybe maybe I'm too Mistborn pilled and I'm thinking about this only in terms of 2 shards. Maybe there are multiple shards involved here. I mean, obviously, the Almighty talks about cultivation, which I'm assuming is a shard, and I think that wit is a shard. Or maybe he is like one of the people that killed Adel Nalsium, but he chose not to have a shard. I don't think that's the case, though. I think that wit is literally a shard, but he has chosen to give up like a portion of his power by like not forming a planet or not like getting involved on a planet to be able to corporeally traverse throughout the worlds. I definitely think that like Wit, Hoid, Drifter was one of the people that killed Adel Nalsium. I just don't know if he actually has a shard or not. But I cannot get over shard blades. Like, the term shard blade, when we know that the gods of this universe are called shards, is just too strong of a connection. Yeah, I don't know. The Odium is kind of throwing me through a loop. I'm wondering if Odium is actually a shard or if he is talking in generalities, like your hatred for each other has killed me, like the Vengeance Pact and all that. That seems a little bit too poetic for what I actually think happened. I think he literally got killed. I don't know. We'll have to see. Those are my thoughts going into Words of Radiance, and I'm fucking psyched. I'm very, very psyched. I haven't actually looked at Words of Radiance, so let's look at it together right now. Or maybe not together right now. My first I should have looked at this before before stream. But I know, so I will be gone, or I'll be traveling 2 Sundays from now. But I don't want us to lose too much time, too much pace. So I think I still want to do it just for my mobile setup on the 18th. The question will just be how much of the book. I'm assuming it's probably set up in a very similar way, like in a very similar like pace. So my initial thought is just like part 1 of Words of Radiance due on the 18th. Let's see. I'll buy it for a credit right now. I can't wait till the next book club. I'm already ready. Dude, you got to slow down. I'm not there yet. It's 6 parts. First part is 5 hours. Oh my god. So like parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all 5 to 7 hours, and then part 6 is 16 hours. Brandon, what are you doing, my guy? How long were the parts in Way of Kings? Like, here, I'm going to go to the beginning of the last one that we read. So we started at part 4. How long did we have? We had 11 hours in part 4. So maybe we do like 2 parts per? Sections with interludes. I've stopped reading and started a new series. Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair. I'll announce it in the Discord as to the exact pace. I'll try to determine it within the next like 2 or 3 days. Start reading. It'll be at least part 1. I don't know if it'll be like parts 1 and 2 though. It might be. It might be like a parts 1 and 2 situation. We'll see. We'll see. But with that, thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you. And I'm psyched to get back into to get into Words of Radiance. I'm very, very psyched, especially with everything that happened right at the end. Lots of big shit that happened towards the end of this. So I think that's about it. I'm always bad at ending shit, so I will end it there. Thank you very much for joining Book Club. Start reading Words of Radiance. We will reconvene on the 18th. I just don't know how many parts we will read. Assume just part 1 for now, but I will check back in. And I will see you all later. Goodbye. Thank you again.